Okay, well, what I'd like to do now is a quick recap of chapters 4 to 6 of Yusupov's Build Up Your Chess, which is the book in the bottom left-hand corner, which I highly recommend to everyone. So what I've been doing very slowly on stream is working through both the examples he gives and then trying to solve the exercises at the end of each chapter. And I'm finding some of the chapters are a lot easier than others. Chapters 4 and 5 you'll see are fairly straightforward, and chapter 6 is really quite challenging. And then we'll see that chapter 7 is also quite straightforward, and chapter 8 I'm still struggling on. But what we're going to do here, maybe we'll do a quick recap of chapters 4 to 6 of Yusupov. Chapter 4 is on promoting pawns, very basic pawn endgames, which are then the foundations for more complex pawn endgames. Chapter 5, completely different, on discovered checks, double checks. And chapter 6 on imbalanced positions and the value of pieces and the importance of having active pieces and a safe king. So what I want to do, I've already worked through these examples very slowly, and I just want to quickly recap through everything very quickly. So this would be good for those who are actually familiar with all this stuff and just want a quick reminder. But if you want to work through things slowly, I recommend you get a copy of the book, and really, yeah, if you don't know this stuff, I really recommend working through it yourself. It's really good material. Okay. Now, this position where the pawn is on the 4th rank or less, you always want to get your king in front of your pawn. But even if you get your king in front of your pawn, if the pawn is only on the 4th rank or below, if black gets opposition, black can draw. Because wherever the white king goes, black just goes opposite the black king. And we'll see why. But if this were black to move, then black would have to step to one side or another, and suppose black steps this way. And white can win, because white should step the other way. If black steps here, you get to take the opposition again. Black steps one way, you step to the opposite direction. And you're then controlling these 3 squares, and so you can just now push the pawn all the way. So if it was black to move, white wins, because white has the opposition. But if it's white to move, look at how it's a draw. Black just keeps the opposition. If you try and push the pawn, this is the key, because the pawn is on the 4th rank or below, and because the king was directly in front of the pawn, so white didn't have any spare moves to make, the black king can just drop back. And if the white king pokes its head above the level of the pawn, the black king can take opposition again. And it's a draw. Okay. In the case of G pawns or B pawns, again, you take opposition, and now you can win because you've got opposition. Sorry, in general, you can take opposition, you can win. With these pawns, you have to be a little bit more careful because you don't want to push this pawn and get stalemate. So what you always do in this position is swing your king over to the A file or the H file, and then push the pawn. And you see here, although white has the opposition, it doesn't matter, because by now the pawn is on the 5th rank. There's no space for the white king to step back to. And so this is a victory for black. Push, push. Okay. Now in this position, white's got a spare move, so even though it's white's move and white didn't have opposition, now white has opposition with the spare move. And so white wins in the way I described earlier. In these cases, the rook pawns, you have to control these two squares. Here the black king just can't get out of the cage, so there's no way for that pawn to promote, because the black king is stuck in front of it. If you try and push, the white king can go into the corner, and it's going to be stalemate. So the key with these rook pawns is to control these two squares. If the black king can ever make its way into the corner, it's a draw. If the black king can even make its way to control these two squares, it's a draw. Even here it's a draw, because white to move, black can pick up the pawn. If white starts pushing the pawn, black can move to here and control these two squares. If you push the pawn, we're back into this old position. If you don't push the pawn, try and control those two squares, no good. So it's very important to get the king on this square here. In this position, white finds himself in a cage, can't progress. In this position, white is to move first. So white gets to this key square first, and so white can promote. In this position, so these positions are all about zugzwang. So white to move, you push the king back. You take the pawn, black has opposition, so what? My pawn is on the 5th rank, so I'm promoting. Okay, in this position. So at first you might think I've got hopes of winning this position, I just need to get my king here when the black king lands here. The problem is, if black were to do this, white's winning. But of course black is not going to be foolish enough to do this. He's going to do this, attacking the white pawn. And then if we were to be foolish enough to do this, then it's black who's winning, because the white king has to move away. So then the only move white can do in this position is here. And after this, white is forced to relinquish his pawn. No, that's not right. He should relinquish the pawn like this so that he gets opposition. And now it's a draw. Good. It's very important to do things in the right order. Now the other thing was, when you're looking at promoting, you should look at the square of the pawn. If you can get into the square of the pawn on your move, then you can stop the pawn from promoting. So here you can stop the pawn from promoting. But there's some rather interesting cases where this king is in the square of this pawn. If the pawn goes to a4, the king can go here and be in the square of the pawn. But if white does this first, then he can block the shortest route of the king. So now when the king goes, he suddenly has to walk round and takes one move longer. Oops. So these were some good illustrative examples of pawn games. And then here now, white to play and win. In this position, or win or draw, can't win this. So what you do is you have to push and then take opposition. You don't want to let black take this pawn with the spare pawn move. So you have to get this draw before, while there is an opportunity for a draw. So in this one, you really want opposition. And you don't want to make the mistake of stepping forwards, because then black gets the opposition. So you must stay as far away as possible. And the moment black steps forward, then you take opposition. So this is a draw. So in this one, this is an interesting one. You want to get the opposition. If you just go go along here, the black king can shoulder you. What you do is you go on the other side. So you're getting, so although black has opposition in a way, it's actually white's going to get the opposition by pushing forwards like this. Opposition. If black were to go here, you just go here. Black goes here, you're the one getting the opposition. So white wins. So it's very important to come the other side of the pawn in order to get the opposition. So next size 4. So this is white to move. Okay, I'm slightly confused. Okay. This is very important. If we just run to get the pawn, black could come round and cage us in. So what we first have to do is you have to shoulder the king out and then quickly run and get the pawn. And black's just one move late from keeping us caged in, so white wins. And this one. Yes. If we were to step back, the black king would have opposition. But if we just step sideways, we have opposition, so white wins. So in this one, this is really important. If the king is on the 5th rank, then black could get opposition. Black could just sacrifice this pawn the moment we take it, get opposition. If we push the pawn to the 5th rank, we can put black into Zugzwang. Opposition, now just walk in. Zugzwang takes. He's got opposition, doesn't matter. We go over onto the A or H file, and we're going to roll that pawn in to become a queen. Now this is a slightly tricky one, because if we go G6, takes, the king's in time to catch it. The key with this one is H6. The king is in time to come back, but this pawn is blocking the king from going the direct route. So the king has to go the long way around. If you take that pawn, you're promoting. If you don't take it, you're also promoting. There's no way for black to stop the H pawn from queening. It's a very nice example. Now this was a really tricky puzzle. If you don't defend those pawns, black is just going to mop up those pawns and have 2 pawns against none, and black is winning. So you have to defend. But the problem is black has got a very nice move here, which is this. And if you take this pawn, black has opposition. Opposition takes. Black's got opposition, black is just winning this. You have to do something very cunning, which is not to take. And if black takes your pawn, only then to take the pawn, because then you've got opposition. Sorry, got it wrong. To push the pawn, sacrificing it, he has to take, because if he tries to run his king, this pawn is running. And if he tries to push the pawn, then this pawn is coming quicker. It's already a queen. So he has to take it, but then we have opposition. But actually in this position, black has a very interesting move, which should be promoted to the main line. And again, if we take this pawn, black gets opposition. So the best thing white can do is actually, not that. It's actually king A1. then whatever black does, white's getting the opposition. You sacrifice a pawn, opposition. What if he takes this one? If he takes this one, I think this pawn wins the race. Does it? Let's just check actually. He can go king b5. Okay, so we better just quickly take this off. He's going to be busy with this pawn at some point. Opposition. Beautiful. Really important to get that opposition. Even though he's in front of the pawn, there's no space for the pawn to move if the pawn moves forwards. Okay, so he's got opposition now, but he's not in front of the pawn anymore. We're in front of the pawn, so we can step back. The moment he pokes his head out, we get opposition. So, instead, we sacrifice the pawn first and then get opposition. So that was a really tricky puzzle. Okay, chapter 4, exercise 9. So this is another tricky one. We know we're losing the pawn, so we're going to go for a draw. But we need opposition now. And the way to get opposition is actually distant opposition. Distant opposition. And if he comes forward, do we come forward and get direct opposition? Very important concept, distant opposition. Here we can put black in Zugzwang, easy. So we can win. Here, there are lots of ways of winning. One of them is just, that's not the way to win. That's just not the way to win. So it's rather unfortunate. In fact, the best way of winning is this. He's forced to go back and then push. If he does this, we just go check and checkmate. So he better take this, but if he takes it, thank you very much. Check and checkmate. So this is a mate. You just need to, yeah, that is not correct. King d6 is not correct. King d6 is probably, is king d6 already drawing? No, so king d6, it is possible to win, but then you have to go king e7 or king e6 next, and get back to the old position. Yeah. So c6 is actually drawing. If you go c6, if I just turn on the opening explorer, you'll see, yeah, it's a draw. King b8, push, king comes behind, king goes back, and the king can just shuffle in front of that pawn. And white can't actually do anything, even though the engine says plus 2.3. There's no breakthrough. Okay, and the final exercise of chapter 4 was this one, where remember, in order to stop the pawn, we need to control those squares. And the way to do that is this. So let him take this pawn, we quickly get in and control those squares. So it's a draw. So that was chapter 4 of Yusupov, Build Up Your Chess. So now a quick recap of chapter 5. Chapter 5 was all about discovered, it was all about double checks. That's a double checkmate. Very pretty. In this position, double checkmate. Because it's a double check, the king has to move, but the king has no flight squares. In this position, and this is where it gets really pretty, because it's a queen sacrifice, which walks into the double checkmate. And in this position, and here it gets tricky, because it's not a forced mate this, it's just something quite pretty. So we do this, and the idea is if rook takes rook, yeah, what if just rook takes rook, just to, for the sake of argument, we're just going to win a lot of material, I think. Yeah, we're just going to take this bishop, and we're also going to be winning, we're also going to be threatening mate here, and potentially winning material as well. So queen e6, check. He doesn't want to go back into the corner because of queen takes h6, check. King here and queen takes g7 mate, so he goes here. But then we go bishop takes rook, check. He's forced to do this. And then we could bring our rook into the action, rook g1 check. Okay, so he's losing a lot of material. So if he was to do king takes h8, queen takes h6, otherwise he's losing a lot of material and mate is coming very soon. So in the original position, after rook takes pawn, bishop takes queen is a good idea. But then we have a discovered check. He could block, but if he does king h7, he actually walks into mate. If he blocks, he's just losing a ton of material. I mean, if you just see that the best move is rook f6, but then you go rook takes f6, queen takes f6, bishop takes queen. Okay, so this is only +6. But if he does the natural king h7, we have a kind of ladder of double checks lining up for the black king. So first of all, we set it up. The black king's paralyzed, can go nowhere. So whatever black does, we have double check, double check, double checkmate. So it's quite a pretty picture. Okay. Now in this position, we have a threat, potential threat, of this and this. Checkmate, if we can just get the knight out of the way. But knight f6, so we might think knight f6, but this doesn't work because king has suddenly got a flight square. So the incredible thing that we do here is we give up the queen. Double check, forcing the king to only one square. Are we going to give up another piece? Incredibly, yes, because if rook takes, we have an Arabian mate. Rook has to block Arabian mate. And if the king takes, and now this is really beautiful, we have rook here, check. We use another piece. We look at this, rook and bishop against rook, bishop, bishop, rook and queen, queen, rook and bishop down, checkmate. That's incredible. This king goes this way, checkmate. And the other ways also checkmate, checkmate. But actually this was kind of stunning. Rook and bishop against, you're a queen, rook and bishop down. So in the original position you actually sacrifice your queen for the sake of this double check. That's the power of the double check. I should say also, king takes bishop. And then we have knight here. Where's the mate here? Thinking knight g8 check, but am I missing something? Knight g8 check, the king can go here or here. What do we want? The king, it could run here, but it can't run too far. I'm going to cheat slightly and just look up the engine. Rook h3 check. Rook g. Okay, of course. I was afraid of king takes knight, but I shouldn't be. This is fine. Because if the king goes either here or here, we have this checkmate. But if the king goes here, we have this checkmate. This is incredible. King goes here, we have this checkmate. And we also have this checkmate. So it's a sort of whole, wow. This is really beautiful. And I was thinking, is there a checkmate after here? And the answer is no, there isn't. Black is safe. So you have to get it right. If king takes bishop, rook here, check, king here, rook g3 check. Now whichever way he goes, so rook here, rook there, checkmate, or knight. And then the really beautiful one is if he takes the knight, that's checkmate. You lost all your pieces, but you got the mate. It's just crazy. That's a really nice example. Okay, diagram 6. And this is really an example where it's not obvious that we've got any double checks at all in this position. But we have a nice check. And if you were to run this way or back, we have queen takes pawn check. So it makes sense to try and avoid that. We've still got queen takes pawn. And that's attacking the rook. So it would make sense for the rook to attack our queen, and this looks like quite a dominating move because it looks like it's picking up our bishop. And it's in this position that we have a stunning tactic. Queen takes pawn. What if he doesn't take that queen? If he doesn't take the queen is taking this pawn with mate. So he has to take the queen. But now check, and notice that the knight and pawns form a wall for this king. So the king is in a mating net. King has to go back. Check. Only one square for the king. Double checkmate. Can't block because it's a double check. Okay, diagram 7. Okay, check. If you don't take it, I'm winning the exchange. So you better take it. And a quiet move, just take back. And the threat is, which can't be stopped, check and checkmate. Nothing that can be done to stop these sorts of ideas. Okay, diagram 8. This is really cool. It seems this threatens mate in 1, but you're just losing a piece. No worries. The bishop covered the escape square of the king. So it looks like you're losing a piece, but you're actually just going to sacrifice everything for the sake of the mate. Okay, diagram 9. Now this is a very interesting one. It's black who has the discovered mate threat. Knight here, check. King here. Queen there, check. Rook takes. Knight here, checkmate. How to stop such a smothered mate. Usually you want to defend f2. The problem is if we defend f2, we're losing, say with our queen, we're losing the momentum of our own attack. If we were to take rook takes knight, that doesn't work because of rook here, check, mate. Well, almost mate. But there's one move which is just crushing and mating, in fact, for white. Not this one, but this one. You give white a square, and there's nothing to stop the mate. You can check. Suppose he throws in a check. You just slide. Well, you just take his knight. Yeah, you could slide into the corner. If you slide into the corner, the problem is he goes knight f2. So you just politely take the knight, check, come back again. He might do something like this, but his position is crushing. Rook there, we can just take it. Okay, and the final diagram, lovely example, really, really, really nice example of the double check. Forced to take, double check, which covers the escape route, has to go back, checkmate. A long diagonal. Okay, so these were the exercises in chapter 5. Pretty obvious. Double check, has to go back into the corner, checkmate. Exercise 2. Sack, double check, checkmate. Exercise 3. So this is a little more complex, but this is very beautiful. You set up a double check. If he takes your queen, if he doesn't take your queen, everything's falling. So if he does something like taking your rook, everything's falling. But if he takes your queen, that's a double checkmate. Can't move the king anywhere and you can't block. So exercise 4. This is really beautiful and quite tricky, I think. And the idea is you sack the queen, oops, in order to set up. He can't not take it. He goes back, then rook here is checkmate. So he has to take it, but now he's fallen in for double check. If he steps back this way, this is checkmate. If he steps this way, this is really beautiful. We have a second double check and checkmate. Double check, second double check, checkmate. Exercise 5. It's an old classic. Exercise 6. Check, forces to take, double check, mate. Easy. Exercise 7. We want to set up the double check, so takes. Now you have to get this right. If you go knight to h5, that knight suddenly becomes a liability. But if you go to e8, it doesn't. So the knight can now come back into the action without hanging. Queen here, check. So you see if the knight was on h5, it would be king takes knight. If king here, it's just checkmate. So it has to be like this. Queen here, check. And now the knight can come back in. Forced, and queen here is checkmate. Exercise 8. This is an old classic with a twist, double check, but this time black could run this way, but it's still mate. Exercise 9. It's an old classic. Check. if you don't take it, I'm winning a rook. If you take it, double check, but it's not quite mate. Where's the next check coming from? There's only one check there. It has to be that one. If you take with the bishop, then that's going to be mate. If you take with the king, this is mate. And if you just simply run, then this is mate. So very nice pattern. Okay, we've seen this already. It's boom. Chapter 11. We've seen this already as well. Cover the escape square to h6 and checkmate. Okay, now this one is not so obvious, but it's going to be one of those ladders. Check, double check, check, double check, mate. The rook goes on a little ladder. Okay, so that was chapter 5 on double checkmates, which is a wonderful chapter and really fun. Then chapter 6 is a really tough chapter about the value of pieces based on the safety of the king and their activity and how well they coordinate with each other. And this particular example is an example of how active pieces defeat inactive pieces. Check. Black is pushed back again. Further pushed back, only one move left available, so complete zugzwang, takes, and you win the pawn. You win the pawn and you're promoting. Really beautiful example of how active pieces dominate inactive ones. Now this is not obvious at all, but you can take this pawn. And what is the best move for black in this position? Knight f6. And just go back again. Queen d5. So I guess that's just winning the pawn idea. Okay. But if black takes back, you have this sacking the queen for 2 rooks, and both the knights are paralyzed. Neither knight can move. One is pinned to the king, the other just has no squares to go to. Okay, so the king can protect the one which is pinned to it. And what do? Lovely move. Exploiting the fact that if the queen takes that rook, there's a fork between the king and the queen. So the queen has to move aside. Now you double up on the back rank. Well, you might as well eat. So what if you doubled up first? No, you don't want to double up first because otherwise the knight will escape. So you take the knight and then double up. And what if the queen just really tried to hold on to that knight? Then you can go rook takes. Ooh. Rook takes e8. I'm not seeing this. Check. Oh. Wow. Well, that is pretty, I have to say. There are other options. For example, doubling up probably works, but let's just see, is doubling up any good? It's okay. But yeah, that knight coming in, actually defending. Ah, so you can trap the queen, I see. So you can win the queen for a rook, and that's why you're still winning, but it's a little bit complicated. So really, if black goes to a7, this is very pretty. 1 square for the king, and then thank you for the queen. So you have to really have an eye for these tactics. But the tactics are there because your pieces are active. Okay, diagram 3. And now this one is an example of king safety. What you do is you play this move threatening a mate. Because queen takes h4 is actually a mate, because the queen on the dark square and the bishop on the light square combine to cover all the squares. And there's no way of black stopping that mate apart from running with the king. But if you run with the king, the queen takes the bishop. So an example is queen h6 check, king here, run. But white is winning. Okay, and this is another example. So this example is undermining the king's safety. That doesn't work, knight takes h6. But knight takes g7 does work, and the reason it works is because of this move, coming into f5 with tempo. And then the queen is going to go onto the g file, and g7 is weak. Again, with tempo. What if the king goes to h6? Checkmate. So it's really just a sort of perfect confluence of factors. Okay. This is a beautiful example. How do rooks defeat a queen? By teaming up. Queen is kind of trapped. It either stays on these three files, where we'll see it's going to get picked up, or it runs away along this row, but then we'll see it'll also get picked up. The diagonals are blocked off. It flees along the row. Check, check, and the king is restricted to these two rows. It's not allowed to go here. And then we have check, check, and the queen is picked up. There's no way of stopping it. Now this is a really nice example of how the rook and knight, although usually weaker than the queen, they can combine forces to be stronger than the queen. The key is to maneuver the knight to a good square. That pawn is falling, so it moves. Still falling, so it moves. Okay, just rearrange your pieces. Defend the rook so you can unpin. Good pawn structure. And now again, rearrange your pieces. So a knight is going to be coming in and picking up that pawn. And those black pawns are going to roll down the board. Diagram 7. So in this example, white has an extra piece with 3 pawns. But that's not going to be useful in an endgame, because the 3 pawns will start trying to promote to a queen. But it's very useful if you can launch a kingside attack. The extra piece is an extra attacker. But how to launch a kingside attack in this position? Line up along the file. Very powerful. Black defends. If black doesn't defend, if black goes pushing his pawns. There's some nice tactics. Push, takes, takes. And you're opening up that file and threatening all kinds of mates. So, this is taking the rook, and there are all kinds of other tactics available. Takes here, takes, takes, knight here, check, takes, queen here, checkmate. All kinds of little tactics. So, rook defending is a good thing. You still do this. You open up the file. Takes, takes. If rook doubles up, then knight here. Rook takes. Rook takes rook. There are other moves. Rook takes e5, takes, takes, knight here check, queen here check, bishop here check, pick up the queen. Lots of little tactics, but if bishop g5, then actually knight h5 is very nice. Takes, takes the queen, takes, 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 and your pieces are active and you have an extra piece. So all sorts of things, yeah. So it's activating your pieces along the good against the opposing king. Now this one again is still a tricky one, but the black queen and the king are exposed along diagonals. So you're going to really exploit. Look how you bring your pieces the best squares. You bring your rook to the open file. You try and put pressure on this f6 square. What is black going to do? Nothing. There's nothing black can do. But look how that came about. It wasn't obvious. There wasn't a weakness there to begin with. It's created through activating the pieces. So it's quite a beautiful example. So then we came to the chapter 6 exercises, which are no joke. And in this position, those black pawns are running, and white, although white has a queen, it's pretty dangerous. Goes for a quick draw, stalemate. Very nice. Realizes the danger. In this one, white has a lot of pressure on this g5 pawn, but it's well defended. So the critical move in this position, although white has two pieces for a rook and a pawn, key move is to sacrifice. Takes, not takes. Knight takes. It attacks the rook and it creates discovered checks. If you move the rook, then there are going to be all kinds of discovered checks. Actually, is there a rook move that's decent in this position? Say rook here. Not really. I mean, you can do this, or you can do knight takes e6, picking up the rook anyway. But anyway, you're picking up the exchange. Okay, exercise 3. This is again a really tricky position because rook takes f6 is coming, so you need a faster attack against a white king. It turns out you have one, and it involves, the bishop is a monster, and it involves opening up this white king. This bishop is beautiful. Beautiful bishop. You need to open up the d file. So you push. No, you don't push. Pushing doesn't work. But instead you do this, attacking the rook. If he takes, you move in. If he does something which would be very natural, rook takes c6, could almost be the main line. I'm not saying it is, but you go knight takes pawn. If he doesn't take, you're mating. If he does take, you're winning an exchange. Rook takes f3 is not bad. Rook takes f6 is not bad at all. If it does rook a to g1, yeah, you're winning an exchange again that way. Yeah, so this is the initial position. It's kind of realizing the importance of the d file. And it's activating the rook and the knight with this move. Realizing that knight can't be taken. So really that is the main line. If it's taken, you're coming in, things are looking pretty nasty. For white. So exercise 4 is all about realizing the weakness of e6. And the queen is more powerful than the rook and the minor. So this is all about dominating the opponent. Active. You put him in zugzwang, pin his pieces. You can't move the king, because if he moves the king, queen here is checkmate. But if he moves a pawn, king here dominates. He pushes the pawn, let's take it. Nothing he can do, he's in zugzwang. This is a beautiful one. You threaten mate in 1. He stops mate in 1, and if you take the bishop, it's stalemate. So you don't take the bishop, you check him. Unfortunately, you don't have your mate anymore, because he's got a square he can run to. That's okay. You pick up the bishop. And this is another really tricky one. Check. Here. If rook takes queen, takes the queen. I mean, you could just go queen takes rook, queen takes pawn. But I don't think it's any good. King takes a7, queen takes pawn, queen takes pawn. This is drawing. you could mark it equal position. Instead what you do is you do queen b8, threatening to promote with checkmate. So he has to take. And now you don't take to promote the queen, you take with a knight. Now you're a piece up in an endgame. Sure, he could come and he can't. He could have to. You could come and try and take this pawn. But actually, you're just going to promote something here really quickly. The king will control this pawn, and this pawn is promoting before he has time to do anything. Okay, so exercise 8. Now this is a really tricky puzzle because black actually has threats of queen here check, queen g6 and so on. And queen e4 doesn't work. And what does work is knight d2. If you take the knight, I'm winning a queen, so he has to take the queen. And then you're winning the queen back in such a way that the king is right in the corner, and you just are in time to shepherd the king, to shepherd your pawn down to become a new queen. Exercise 9. This is a lovely little position because queen here, queen to f1, white is safe. But what you do is you say, look, I'm an extra piece up for 3 pawns. How do I activate this piece? Simple. I'm going to put that piece on here. But actually, the best way of putting it there is by first going queen h5 check. He's forced to go back, and then I go here. Nothing you can do to this move. What can you do? So white's piece is just not coordinating, and that extra knight is a monster. It's going to take off the rook with check. Okay, takes back. Queen there, checkmate. Okay, exercise 10. So this is a case of queen against 3 pieces, but the queen is active. And it's going to, it could just go and mop up the pawns, but actually you can just pick up one of the pieces immediately. And in this position you could maintain the pin, but why not just create a new pin? It also works. And exercise 11. It's very simple. I'm trying to promote. He can't take that pawn, so you get to take the knight for free and get a pawn to promote. And in this one, knight against rook, but you have potential for pass pawn, and he can't stop it. He takes it, you push, and you're winning this by creating enough weaknesses in black's pawns with this key move, h5. And if he doesn't take, if he does a move like rook h6, you could either go knight b4, or you could go c7. And just slowly promote. And that completes chapter 6. And that completes the roundup of chapters 3 to 6 of Yusupov's Build Up Your Chess. And I highly recommend you all to check out the book. Do try and get yourselves a copy and work through the examples and have a go at these exercises. Because even though you've seen them in the stream, if you look at them again in 2 weeks' time, you can see them with fresh eyes and try again. And the mating tactics we saw in chapter 5 are very, very nice. And the pawn endgames in chapter 4 are very important. And in chapter 6, what we've just done, what we saw instead is how important it is for each of your pieces to be working to the maximum, to be active, and to be working in coordination You're making your pieces work. You're opening up nice files. So in this position, how do I make my queen work? I disrupt his pawn structure, and then suddenly it works nicely. Yeah, so this has been really good to go over these chapters again. I mean, I'd already done these exercises a couple of weeks ago. I went through them again on stream just now, and it was just good just to recap and revise the ideas in this recap video. So I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.